Hey guys, and welcome back to this tutorial on concepting, modeling, sculpting, texturing, and implementing an original weapon asset, which in this case is a slug launcher, as we talked about last episode. Last episode we spent a lot of time on thumbnailing, on combining the aspects we liked from the different thumbnails into one thumbnail, and eventually combining that in a 3D drawing. We made sure we had the shapes correct, we made sure it worked in 3D, and we did a lot of color work already. Also, we tried to focus on making the design work for our character, for our environment, for our setting, which is the post-apocalypse, of course. And in the meantime, between episodes, I drew out the character, which I'll show you right now. So, as you can see, she has a lot of colors that we can use. She has a lot of shape language that we can use. And it just displays the general setting I want to place it in. So it's gonna be mounted on her wrist, on her left wrist. And it has to be used by one arm. So that's why the bands and stuff are in place. And it has to have a certain look that just suits her. Remember that in your workflow you don't have to draw the entire character and stuff, it's just that I wanted to make the character and I wanted to make a weapon for her. But it's not in any way necessary to do that. You can also just write down what the character would be, if that's important. I mean, it's up to you to decide and to see whether the way the character looks and the way the character moves is important for the weapon's design. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a war weapon and that's a thing that stands on its own. But in my case, it's a purposely made weapon designed by her and made by her. So it was very important to know who she was in order to make the weapon. You can, for example, see that an arsenal weapon that lies in some depot, in some military depot, as a entirely different thing, because it's gonna be used by soldiers, but the soldiers don't have to be as refined and designed. Maybe in that case it's way more important to make them look industrially produced, like mass production and stuff. But it's up to you to decide what's important for the weapon's looks. Just make sure you have some points other than it just being a weapon. If you're new to this series and you're interested in what we did last episode, I suggest watching that first, as we cover a couple of basics. And with that said, let's start up Autodesk Maya. Here you see me setting up an image plane. It's really easy to do. You just select a camera and you press image plane, and then you can upload an image. And if you selected the camera from the side, for example, it automatically snaps it to the axis you were looking at. So in that way you can fill out the profile really easy before looking at the 3D model as a 3D object. Keep in mind here, especially at the beginning, that big shapes go first. So get the rough shape set up as quickly as you can. Make the choice between extruding and just slamming models into each other. I usually use both. It depends on what kind of surface it is, what kind of angle it is. But it's up to the occasion. Usually extrusion is a bit more neat and it does give a cleaner model, but in some cases it's just way more easy to make two separate objects and just push them into each other. You might want to retopologize it later, but that's no problem for now. Now we just need to get the shape set up as soon as possible. Also you'll see me working from one side, just with symmetry on. That's a really nice tool. I have it mounted on the top, as you can see, in blue. But it works really well for models like this, especially in the beginning, because weapons are mostly symmetrical. And you can always turn it off and change it later. Also, I'm not working in real 3D yet, of course. I am, but I'm making it from one side, just so I can focus on the shape from this side. Then I'll focus on the shape from the top, and then I'll focus on the entire shape. But I'm trying to split it up, just to have that focus and not have to pay attention to all sides at once. You have to make it easier for yourself. I mean, you can do it like all hardcore, all in one go, but it's way more easy to split it up, and it minimizes the chance you make mistakes and stuff like that. Also, you see me taking a bit of freedom with the shapes. If I think something works better, I just do it. I mean, I'm my own boss at this point, making this model. So I don't really have to pay attention to what I made, as long as I'm staying a bit true to the design. I mean, it's up to you really. Of course, if you're working in a company, you're gonna be more bound to the concept. But to me, it's like, if I see something that can be done better, I'll just do it. Of course, in a company, you'll have much more time for iterations, and you'll do many more iterations just before sending it off to a 3D artist. Or you'll have the concept that has already undergone a lot of iterations before you're getting it, if you are the 3D artist. But for me, I am just one person. I made the concept myself, and I just made 6 thumbnails, as you saw. So if I think something can be done better, I'll just do it. Here I'm slowly making the transition to more a 3D approach. So more like making the top look a bit more like what I want. Making the bands for the arm and stuff. But I'm still focusing on big shapes. It's important to keep being focusing on the big shapes, because the little shapes are all gonna come from the sculpt. We're gonna bake the map in Substance Painter, but we're gonna sculpt the entire thing in Zbrush. So that's where the detail is coming from. Right here in Maya, we're trying to be as big as we can, and we're trying to get the global shape instead of the little details. An important thing to keep in mind is the normal map is just a map. So whether you're modeling stuff or whether you're getting stuff out of the normal map from the sculpt, that's a very important decision to make. Normal maps are of course just a map. They're a texture map, they're a lighting trick, and thus they can't give you any profile. They can't give you any silhouette. They just give the appearance of something that's modeled without something actually being modeled. And there's always a choice between the performance that the normal map gives and the extra fine details and extra profile that something that's modeled can give. So it's a bit of a choice. Usually I do everything that can be seen as a separate object from the profile, or does make the general shape a lot more interesting. I'll just model that, as long as it's not too high poly. Probably I'll just box model that and just detail it in Zbrush. And the rest I'll just get from the normal map. In games it's always like a choice between performance and appearance. And while we're much better off nowadays than we were 10 years ago in terms of performance, it's still smart to save some polys where you can. Use a couple of tricks to get more performance out of your game. Because if you're gonna use like 100 of these, you're gonna see the difference. You see that in a lot of beginning 3D artists. They usually model everything. Like they have to model a bicycle and they have like 60 subdivisions per spoke. And like 300 different parts in their bike chain. But one of the fun things of being a game artist, I think, is just figuring out those smart ways of saving performance and getting stuff done that looks good but still isn't that high poly or performance heavy. I wanted to show you a little trick which I'm gonna use in a minute. It's called the Boolean difference operation. And it's meant to intersect two objects to make a hole in one. I'm gonna use that for the barrel later. So you're selecting the object you want a hole in. You're selecting the object that's gotta create the hole. Go to Mesh, Boolean, and then Difference, and it creates a hole. It's not really retopologized yet. You'll just have to do that manually, which is not that hard, of course. But yeah, it creates really cool holes. You can use any object to create a hole. So you can make like any special thing you want. Here you see me using a copy of the knife, for example, or the hatchet to make a hole. And it just works the same as any shape. So yeah, that opens a lot of opportunities. I think most of you will know this by now, but for the ones that don't, I guess it's a nice trick. And there it is, my final model. Of course I need some cleaning up to do, and I need to UV map and stuff. If you want to see how you do that, there's plenty of tutorials that cover that. I'm just gonna, for time's sake, be real quick about it. Use automatic mapping for a lot of things. You shouldn't, but I will for this time. Just for time's sake. Yeah, so thank you for watching this episode. I hope you learned something, or at least were somewhat entertained. And I'm just gonna finish this one up, and then we're ready to take it to Zbrush next episode. So without any further rambling, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!